October 25, 1988. River Road, Emmett Township, Michigan. Two deer hunters push through wet October brush when one stops. You smell that? 20 feet into the underbrush, they find her. Gail Barris, 30 years old, face down in the leaves, stabbed 9 times. A mother of 3 who left for coffee and never came home. Her killer walked free for 32 years, attended community events, lived his life while Gail's son grew up without her. But one preserved vial of blood, forgotten in an evidence room, would finally bring the truth to light. If you believe mothers like Gail deserve justice no matter how many years pass, hit that subscribe button right now. Only those who side with murderers and their enablers won't. Don't let them win. To understand what was lost on October 25, 1988, you have to understand who Gail Barris was before that night erased her future. Battle Creek, Michigan, Cereal City. Kellogg's factory smell drifted through downtown every morning. Sweet, toasted, familiar. Working-class neighborhoods stretched for miles. Factory whistles marked shift changes. Gail Barris was born March 15, 1958, the middle child in a Kellogg's assembly line family. She trained as a nursing assistant at community college, married her high school sweetheart at 19, had 3 kids by 22. Son James, born in 1975. Daughters Ashley and Melissa followed in 1980 and 1982. The marriage crumbled by 1984. He drank, she worked. Divorce finalized in 1985. She got the kids, a beat-up Ford Escort, and $285 a month child support that rarely came. By 1988, Gail worked 3 jobs: waitressing downtown, clerical temp work, weekend janitorial shifts. Her West Columbia apartment cost $285 a month. 2 bedrooms, peeling paint, radiator that clanked. But clean. Always clean. 5'6", 135 pounds, shoulder-length brown hair. A warm smile that made strangers feel welcome. Quiet strength. She never complained, just handled things. One problem at a time. James, 13, remembers her falling asleep at the kitchen table helping with algebra at midnight. Ashley and Melissa thought their mom was magic. She could stretch $20 into a week of groceries, fix broken toys with tape and patience, make Christmas happen when the bank account said no. Sundays were sacred. Church at First Baptist, library in the afternoon, pot roast if money allowed. Then her one escape, coffee at Speed's coffee shop after the kids slept. 99-cent black coffee, a slice of pie if tips were good. Her grandmother babysat. 1 hour, 1 book, 1 breath of freedom from a life that demanded everything. On October 9, 1988, she kissed her daughters goodnight and walked out the door. She never walked back in. Gail woke at 8 a.m. to sunlight streaming through thin curtains. Made pancakes for the kids, biscuit mix, margarine instead of butter, syrup from a plastic bottle. James ate 4. The girls fought over the last one. She attended 10 a.m. service at First Baptist Church on Capitol Avenue. Sat in the family pew, 4th row from the front, sang hymns she'd known since childhood, prayed for strength, for money, for her kids to have better lives than hers. Afternoon meant laundry in the basement machines. 2 loads, quarters she'd saved all week. Homework help at the kitchen table. James struggling with fractions, Ashley practicing spelling words. Chicken in the oven for dinner, thighs because they were cheapest. James asked to go to a friend's house. She said yes, be home by 9 p.m. He kissed her cheek and ran out. Ashley and Melissa watched The Wonderful World of Disney on the small TV, curled on the couch with a blanket. Gail folded laundry during commercials, stacking clothes on the table. By 8 p.m., kids in bed, apartment quiet, too quiet. Her mother called, "You okay, honey?" "Yeah, Mama, just tired." "You're always tired. You need rest." "I'll rest when I'm dead." She laughed, not knowing. Around 9:30 p.m., she grabbed her purse, told her grandmother who'd come over to watch the girls. Going for coffee, back in an hour. Drove her 1982 Ford Escort, dented passenger door. AM radio stuck on the oldies station. She sang along to the Supremes as she drove down Michigan Avenue, streetlights blinking yellow. Arrived at Speed's coffee shop at 9:47 p.m. The diner glowed like a beacon. Chrome stools lined the counter, red vinyl booths, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of coffee, bacon grease, cigarette smoke, Sunday night crowd, truckers finishing routes, third shift workers grabbing dinner, teenagers nursing sodas and sharing fries. Gail sat at the counter, far end near the kitchen, ordered black coffee and a slice of apple pie from waitress Betty Morse, 58, who'd worked there since 1970. "Hey, hun, how are the kids?" "Good. Driving me crazy, but good." Betty smiled. "That's what they do." The coffee was hot, bitter, perfect. The pie was yesterday's, but still decent. Gail pulled out her book, a Danielle Steele novel, dog-eared and read 3 times already. Lost herself in someone else's problems. Around 10 p.m., a man sat 2 stools away. Dark hair, mustache. Maybe 25 years old. Jeans and a jean jacket, work boots. Ordered coffee, black. Pulled out a pack of Marlboros, lit one, took a long drag. He glanced at Gail. "You from around here?" She looked up from her book, polite but cautious. "Born and raised, you?" "Bellevue mostly, just passing through." They talked. Nothing deep. The weather, the coffee. Battle Creek versus other small Michigan towns. Witnesses later described the interaction. Friendly, not flirtatious. Just 2 people filling silence. She didn't know he had a warrant out of Bellevue for rape. Didn't know he'd been fired from 3 jobs for anger issues. Didn't know he watched women the way predators watch prey. He mentioned needing a ride. His car broke down near the river. Gail hesitated. Set her book down. "I don't know you." Smiled but firm. "Boundaries." "My buddy's here too," the man said, gesturing to the back. Another man sat in a booth near the restrooms. Hadn't ordered, just watched. Shorter than the first man, muscular, dead-eyed. "We were camping," the man continued, "and car died. Just need a ride back to town." Gail finished her coffee. Left $2 on the counter, 1 for the coffee, 1 for Betty. "Good luck with the car," she said. Stood, grabbed her purse, walked toward the door. Betty Morse watched through the window. Saw Gail head to her Escort parked 3 spaces down. Saw the dark-haired man stub out his cigarette, follow her out 30 seconds later. Saw the other man leave right after. Betty turned to help another customer. Didn't think anything of it. That was 10:12 p.m. A motorist driving west on Michigan Avenue saw Gail's Escort at a stoplight near the intersection with Capitol Avenue. Normal, nothing alarming. The light turned green. The Escort drove on. Another witness driving east on River Road around 10:45 p.m. saw something strange. A woman standing beside a car, gesturing, arguing. 2 men with her, one tall and dark-haired, the other shorter, built like a fighter. The witness slowed, considered stopping, but it looked like a domestic dispute, couple fighting, someone's boyfriend or husband, not his business. He drove on. That spot was 100 yards from where hunters would find her body 16 days later. What happened next was reconstructed from witness statements, forensics, and the cold logic of violence. Gail was overpowered, 2 men against 1 woman. She fought, that much was clear from the scene, but she never had a chance. Dragged into the woods, 20 feet from the road, far enough that screams wouldn't carry. The assault was brutal. Sexual violence first, then the stabbing, 9 times. Chest, neck, abdomen, rage wounds. Someone wanted her to suffer. She died there in the cold October dirt, under a canopy of oak trees 5 miles from her sleeping children. The 2 men returned to Battle Creek that night, washed blood off their hands, changed clothes, went to sleep like nothing happened. Gail's escort was found the next morning still parked outside her apartment on West Columbia Avenue. Keys gone, purse gone. Gail vanished. The hunter's 911 call crackles with panic, voices shaking. One man vomiting in the background. "There's a body, oh God, there's a body." Emmett Township police arrive within 12 minutes, secure the perimeter with yellow tape stretched between oak trees. Detective Al Tolf from Battle Creek PD gets the call at 8:15 a.m. He's been searching for Gail for 16 days. 16 days of dead ends, false sightings, prayers that went unanswered. He drives to River Road in silence. The woods are cold. October leaves turning rust and gold. Tolf ducks under the tape, walks the narrow path trampled by the hunters. He already knows who he'll find. He's known since day 3. Gail's body lies in a shallow depression, arms bent at unnatural angles. Multiple stab wounds visible through torn clothing. Her blue sweater ripped dark with dried blood. Her purse is missing. But her wedding ring from a marriage that ended 3 years ago still circles her finger. Medical examiner Dr. Richard Howard arrives by 9 a.m., black bag in hand. He crouches beside the body, examining without touching. Estimates she's been dead 16 days. "Since the night she disappeared," Tolf mutters. Dr. Howard nods. "I'll know more after autopsy, but yes, the decomposition matches. No defensive wounds on her hands. She was likely unconscious when the worst happened, or restrained so she couldn't fight. Her shoes lie 30 feet away, tossed separately into the brush. Someone threw them. Someone wanted to humiliate her even in death. Biological evidence is immediately apparent. Sexual assault occurred before or during the murder. Dr. Howard collects semen samples with meticulous care, preserving them in sterile vials. Labels each one. Signs the chain of custody. In 1988, DNA testing is brand new. First forensic use was just 2 years ago, but Howard knows this evidence might matter someday. A witness report from October 9th sits in Tolf's notebook. A motorist saw a woman arguing with 2 men on River Road that night. Right here, 100 yards from this exact spot. 2 men, not 1, 2. Tolf underlines it twice in his notes. The coffee shop connection haunts him. Gail was last seen at Speed's with a dark-haired man. Witnesses said he seemed friendly, not threatening. Just talking. Just 2 people having coffee on a Sunday night. Who brings someone coffee then kills them? Tolf's partner asks, standing at the edge of the scene. Tolf doesn't answer because he doesn't know, but he will. He has to. Gail's grandmother called 911, voice shaking. "My granddaughter went for coffee last night and never came home. She always comes home." Battle Creek PD dispatched Officer Tim Radcliffe within 8 minutes. He knocked on the apartment door, notebook in hand. The grandmother answered, eyes red. Behind her, 3 children sat on the couch, silent and terrified. James, 13, paced the small living room. "Where's Mom? She always comes home, always." Officer Radcliffe took a report. Gail Barris, 30, white female, brown hair, last seen at Speed's coffee shop. He radioed it in. By noon, Detective Al Tolf from Homicide Division was assigned. Tolf, 44, had worked Battle Creek PD for 22 years. Seen plenty of missing persons. Most came home drunk or ran off with a boyfriend. But something about this case felt wrong. Single mother of 3. No history of disappearing. No boyfriend. No drama. He interviewed the family, taking notes in his careful handwriting. Canvassed Speed's coffee shop by 2 p.m. Betty Morse described the dark-haired man. They were just talking. She left first. He followed maybe 30 seconds later, then the other guy. "Other guy?" Tolf asked. "Yeah, sat in the back booth, didn't order anything, just watched." Tolf felt the hairs on his neck stand up. "Can you describe him?" "Shorter, Muscular. Dark hair too, but different. Harder looking. Tolf requested security footage. Betty shook her head. We don't have cameras. Owner says they're too expensive. No footage. No credit card receipts. The man paid cash. Just witness descriptions and a bad feeling. October 10th through October 24th, 16 days of searching. Battle Creek mobilized. Volunteers formed search parties of 50 to 100 people combing parks, riverbanks, abandoned buildings, woods. Flyers with Gail's photo plastered on every storefront, every telephone pole, every church bulletin board. Local TV stations led with her story every night. The Battle Creek Inquirer ran daily updates. Tips poured in, dozens, then hundreds. Woman matching Gail's description seen at a gas station in Marshall. False alarm. Body found in a dumpster behind a restaurant. Turned out to be a mannequin. James distributed flyers after school, taped one to every telephone pole on Michigan Avenue. His hands blistered from the stapler. His sisters were too young to understand. When's Mommy coming home? Melissa asked every night. No one could answer. Gail's mother organized vigils at First Baptist Church. Prayers, candles, hymns. Hope that felt more like desperation. Please God, bring her home, she begged, kneeling at the altar. Tolf followed every lead. Checked hospitals, morgues, homeless shelters. Interviewed Gail's ex-husband. He had an alibi, working third shift the night she disappeared. Interviewed friends, co-workers, neighbors. Nothing. Days blurred into weeks. Hope faded. October 22nd, 1988. A break, but not the one they wanted. Detective Tolf received a call from Bellevue PD, 15 miles south. They had a warrant for Roger Dean Plato, 24, for rape. Victim assaulted in her apartment 3 weeks earlier. Violent, brutal. Suspect fled before police arrived. Tolf cross-referenced the name. Plato lived in Battle Creek, West Van Buren Street. Frequented Speed's coffee shop. He pulled a photo from Bellevue's file, showed it to Betty Morse. Her face went pale. That's him. That's the guy who talked to Gail. Tolf and 2 uniformed officers went to arrest Plato at 11:30 a.m. They knocked, announced themselves, heard movement inside. Then silence. The door opened. Roger Plato, dark hair slicked back, eyes wild. He saw the uniforms and ran. Out the back door, through alleys, across yards. Residents watched from windows. A mother pulled her child inside. Plato pulled a .38 revolver from his waistband, fired twice over his shoulder. Bullets struck a fence post, a car window. Officers returned fire, 6 shots. Plato went down on a residential lawn, bleeding from chest and abdomen. Ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics worked frantically, but Plato died en route to Bronson Methodist Hospital, 11:52 a.m. Tolf searched Plato's apartment. Clothes on the floor, beer cans stacked on the counter. A box of .22 ammunition on the kitchen table. No sign of Gail, no purse, no keys, no evidence. But Tolf knew. Deep in his gut, he knew. He interviewed Plato's associates. One name kept appearing, Richard Compton. Compton, 26, Plato's friend and sometimes roommate, the man from the back booth at Speed's. On October 23rd, Compton was brought in for questioning. Sat in the interview room, arms crossed, expression flat. Yeah, I was at Speed's with Roger that night, so what? Did you see a woman there? Brown hair, about 30? Maybe. Roger talked to a lot of people. Did Roger leave with her? I don't know, I left first. Witnesses say you left right after Roger. Compton shrugged. Then the witnesses are wrong. Tolf leaned forward. Where were you between 10 p.m. and midnight on October 9th? Home, asleep. Anyone verify that? No. I live alone. Tolf wanted to reach across the table and choke the truth out of him. But he had no evidence. No witnesses placing Compton at the scene, no physical proof. Compton walked out at 6 p.m., lawyered up and silent. 2 days later, hunters found Gail's body along River Road. By 10 a.m., Detective Tolf stood at the scene staring at what remained of Gail Barris. The medical examiner confirmed what everyone already knew. Dead approximately 16 days, since the night she disappeared. Tolf drove to West Columbia Avenue, knocked on the apartment door. Gail's mother answered, hope and dread warring on her face. "We found her," Tolf said. The old woman's knees buckled. James caught her before she hit the floor, his 13-year-old arms suddenly too small for the weight he carried. "Where?" James asked, voice breaking. "River Road. In the woods." "Is she—" He couldn't finish. Tolf nodded. "I'm sorry." Wailing filled the apartment, sounds no home should contain. Gail's mother sobbed. Ashley and Melissa cried without understanding why. James stood frozen, holding his grandmother, staring at nothing. At the scene, Dr. Richard Howard worked methodically, photographed the body from 12 angles, documented every wound, every bruise, every violation. Gail Barris had been murdered with extreme violence. Cause of death, multiple stab wounds, exsanguination. She bled out in those woods, slowly, while her children slept 5 miles away. 9 stab wounds total, chest, abdomen, neck. Concentrated on the torso, deep wounds forceful, rage wounds, sexual assault evident. Semen collected from the body and clothing, carefully preserved in sterile vials. Chain of custody documented, 3 separate samples taken, defensive wounds on her hands, small cuts on her palms, fingers. She fought, clawed, tried to push the knife away, but 2 men against 1 woman meant she never had a chance. Dr. Howard noted the timeline. She didn't die immediately. The wounds suggest she survived several minutes, maybe longer. Tolf closed his eyes. She suffered. Yes. Someone had thrown her shoes 30 feet away into the brush. 1 here, 1 there, tossed like garbage. Tolf stood in those woods, October sun filtering through bare branches, 100 yards from where the motorist saw the argument, right where he knew she'd be. "Roger Plato did this," he said aloud. Roger Plato was dead. October 26, 1988, evidence sent to Michigan State Police Crime Lab in Lansing. Blood sample from Plato's autopsy submitted alongside the semen samples from Gail's assault. The goal, match the DNA, close the case. But in 1988, DNA testing was brand new. The first forensic use had been just 2 years earlier in England. American labs were overwhelmed, undertrained, working with primitive equipment. Procedures were inconsistent. Results took months. November 1988. Initial results came back. Inconclusive. Plato's blood sample had degraded during transport. Temperature fluctuations. Improper storage. The vial sat in an evidence transfer van for 36 hours before reaching the lab. By then, the sample was compromised. Tolf read the report 3 times, couldn't believe it. Run it again. A private lab in Detroit tried in early 1989. Better equipment, better technicians. Results came back in March. DNA does not match. Roger Plato is excluded as the donor of the semen samples. Tolf sat in his office staring at the words. Excluded. Impossible. "That's impossible," he told the lab technician on the phone. "The science doesn't lie, detective. The profiles don't match." "Then the science is wrong." But science was science, and without DNA evidence, Tolf had nothing. Richard Compton was re-interviewed in April 1989, brought back to the station, questioned for 6 hours. Hair samples taken from his car and apartment, sent for comparison against hairs found on Gail's clothing. Results. Hair samples could not be matched to Richard Compton with available technology. Translation: inconclusive. Tolf tried everything. witness statements, timelines, circumstantial evidence. But without physical proof linking either man to the murder, the case stalled. Compton lawyered up, stopped talking. "My client has cooperated fully," his attorney said. "He had nothing to do with this crime." By 1990, the case was officially cold. Tolf worked it for another year, interviewed dozens more people, chased tips that led nowhere. A woman claimed she saw Plato with Gail at a bar. Wrong woman. A prisoner offered information in exchange for reduced sentence. He knew nothing. The file grew to 2,000 pages. Witness statements, forensic reports, photographs, maps, all of it leading nowhere. In 1995, Tolf retired. The case haunted him until his death in 2003. His wife found his personal notes in a desk drawer. "I know Plato did it. I know Compton helped. But I can't prove it. Gail deserves better." Gail's funeral was held October 29, 1988, at First Baptist Church. Over 300 people attended. Neighbors who barely knew her, co-workers from the diner, strangers moved by a story they'd followed on the news. "Open casket," Gail's mother insisted. "I need to see her." The funeral home did their best. Covered the worst wounds with makeup and clothing, made her look peaceful, like she was sleeping. James, 13, sat between his sisters in the front pew, held their hands. Ashley, 8, kept asking why Mommy was sleeping in a box. No one could answer. Melissa, 6, didn't understand death yet, thought her mother would wake up. The pastor spoke about justice, heaven, God's plan. James didn't hear any of it, just stared at his mother's face, memorizing every detail. The curve of her nose, the line of her jaw, the way her hair fell. This was the last time he'd see her. Gail was buried at Oak Hill Cemetery on the west side of Battle Creek. Simple headstone, gray granite. Gail Ann Barris, 1958 to 1988, beloved mother. Her mother planted roses at the grave every spring. Red roses, Gail's favorite. Tended them through summer heat, covered them in winter. For years afterward, that grave had the most beautiful roses in the cemetery. Every October 9th, Gail's mother held a memorial. Small gatherings. Family, close friends, church members. They lit candles, shared stories, cried together. The Battle Creek Inquirer covered it sporadically. Family still seeks answers in 1988. Murder. But as years passed, the coverage dwindled. Other murders happened. Other families grieved. Gail's story faded. James grew up in the shadow of loss. Graduated high school in 1993, moved to Dayton, Ohio for a job at a warehouse. Couldn't stay in Battle Creek. Too many memories, too many ghosts. But he never forgot. Started a file of his own, newspaper clippings carefully cut and saved. Police reports requested under Freedom of Information Act. His own notes, theories, timelines. "Someday," he told his sisters on the phone, "we're going to find out who did this." Ashley and Melissa doubted. 30 years was a long time. People moved on. Cases went cold. Justice didn't always come. James believed, had to believe. If he stopped believing, his mother died for nothing. 1990 to 2010, 20 years of nothing. Gail's case joined 60 unsolved murders in Calhoun County. File boxes stacked in an evidence room gathering dust, her name on a list that grew longer every year. For 20 years, Gail's family waited while her case gathered dust. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? What cold case in your area needs to be solved? Your engagement keeps these stories alive. Detective Tolf, retired in 1995, handed the file to his replacement. "This one matters," he said. "Don't let her be forgotten." But departments had limited resources. Active cases took priority. Cold cases waited. Tolf died in 2003, heart attack at 67. His wife found his personal case notes in a desk drawer. Hundreds of pages, maps with routes marked, timelines cross-referenced, witness statements annotated in his handwriting. At the bottom of the last page, I know Plato did it, I know Compton helped, but I can't prove it. I failed her. His wife donated the notes to Battle Creek PD. They went into the file, unread. The evidence sat in storage. Climate-controlled facility, carefully labeled boxes, semen samples in vials, Gail's clothing, blood-stained and folded. Plato's blood sample from the autopsy, preserved for potential use in other sexual assault cases. All of it waiting. Gail's mother aged. Her hair turned white. Her hands developed arthritis, but her resolve never wavered. Every October 9th, the vigil continued. Fewer people attended as years passed. Just family, a handful of church members. They met at the grave, lit candles, prayed. Please, God, let us know who did this. Before I die, let me know. James called from Ohio every week. Any news, Grandma? No, baby, but we keep praying. He sent her articles about cold cases being solved. DNA technology advancing, forensic genealogy solving decades-old murders. It could happen, Grandma. Science is catching up, she wanted to believe. But 30 years was a long time to hope. 2009, Richard Compton died in Houston, Texas, age 47. Heart attack. Sudden, unexpected. Collapsed at his apartment, dead before paramedics arrived. James read the obituary online. The only other person who knew what happened that night was gone. He took his secrets to the grave, James told his sisters. Ashley had become a social worker in Grand Rapids, married, 2 kids. She'd built a life around helping people, channeling her mother's compassion. But the murder haunted her. Therapy helped, but grief never fully faded. Melissa taught elementary school in Kalamazoo, remembered her mother in fragments. The smell of her perfume, the sound of her laugh, the way she sang along to the radio. Both sisters had made peace with never knowing, accepted that some questions don't get answered. But James couldn't. Wouldn't. He joined online cold case forums, connected with amateur sleuths across the country, learned about familial DNA, genetic genealogy, new testing methods that didn't exist in the 80s. In 2018, decades-old murders across the country were being solved using forensic genealogy. Cold cases from the 70s and 80s cracked because of public DNA databases. James, now 43, saw an opening. If they can solve cases from 40 years ago, why not Mom's? He compiled everything he had, 300 pages of research, maps of River Road with the crime scene marked, timelines comparing Plato's and Compton's whereabouts, witness statements from FOIA requests, his own theories meticulously documented. In June 2018, he called Battle Creek PD. I'm James Barris, Gail Barris's son. I need to know if there's anything new on her case. The dispatcher transferred him 3 times. Finally landed with Detective Scott Marshall, Cold Case Unit. Marshall, 39, had been assigned to cold cases for 6 months. Fresh perspective, they said. Bring new eyes. Mr. Barris, Marshall said, I've reviewed your mother's file. I'm sorry for your loss. It's been 30 years. I need to know if there's anything that can be done. The file is complicated. 2,000 pages across 3 different filing systems, but I'll do what I can. Can I send you what I have? My research? Marshall hesitated. Families meant well, but amateur investigations usually just muddied waters. Sure, send it over. James emailed everything that night. 300 pages converted to PDFs, maps, timelines, theories. Marshall spent the weekend reading. By Monday, he was impressed. Mr. Barris, you did half my job for me. This is thorough work. So you'll look into it? I'm already looking. Marshall spent 27 months reconstructing the case. Cross-referenced witness statements from 1988. Checked alibis. Tracked down surviving witnesses. Betty Morse, the Speed's waitress, was still alive, living in a nursing home, 88 years old, mind sharp. Marshall visited her in January 2019. "Mrs. Morse, do you remember Gail Barris?" Her eyes filled. "That poor girl. I think about her all the time. You told police she talked to a man that night. Dark hair, mustache. Roger Plato. I saw his picture after he got shot. That was him." The motorist who saw the argument on River Road had died in 2005, but his 1988 statement was detailed. Woman arguing with two men, one tall, one shorter. River Road, late Sunday night. Marshall focused on Plato and Compton. The original investigation concluded Plato was excluded by DNA. But Marshall knew testing in 1988 was unreliable. The original tests were wrong. I know it. He contacted families of both men. Plato's sister still lived in Michigan. "My brother was evil. I'm not surprised he did this. I hope he's burning in hell." Compton's ex-wife lived in Houston. "Richard was a liar and a drunk, but I don't think he was a killer. He was terrified of Roger, did whatever Roger said." Marshall arranged for Compton's exhumation. Body disinterred from a Houston cemetery, January 2020. DNA extracted from bone marrow. Tested against the semen from Gail's assault. Results arrived March 2020, Richard Compton excluded. His DNA did not match, but hair analysis suggested he was present at the scene. Hairs found on Gail's clothing were microscopically consistent with Compton's samples. He was there, Marshall concluded. He lied to cover for Plato, obstruction of justice, accessory after the fact. But Compton was dead. No charges possible, no justice to be had. Marshall called James with the update. "Compton was there, but he didn't assault your mother. That was all Plato. So Plato did it." "I believe so. But the 1989 DNA test excluded him. Without new evidence, I can't prove it." James felt the familiar weight of disappointment. 30 years, still nothing. Then 3 months later, everything changed. March 2020. The world was shutting down. COVID-19 spreading, offices closing, essential workers kept going. Sergeant Chris Botzik, evidence technician for Calhoun County Sheriff's Office, conducted a routine evidence audit. Required every 5 years. Inventory cold case materials, verify chain of custody, ensure proper storage. Tedious work, box after box, checking labels against databases. Most cases from the 80s and 90s, murders, rapes, assaults, all waiting for science to catch up. One box labeled Barris Gail, 1988. Botzik opened it. Clothing in sealed bags, blood-stained and faded. Autopsy photos in a manila envelope. Chain of custody logs, yellowed with age, crackling under his fingers. At the bottom, wrapped in bubble wrap that popped softly as he unwound it, a small glass vial, red cap, label in careful handwriting, blue ink faded but legible. Plato, Roger, blood sample, 10/22/88. Botzik stopped, held his breath, stared at it. Why was this here? He checked the logs. The vial had been preserved during Plato's autopsy for potential use in other sexual assault cases Plato was suspected of committing. After Plato died in the shootout, investigators thought the blood might be needed for comparison in additional crimes. But after the 1989 DNA test excluded Plato from Gail's murder, no one thought to test it again. The vial just sat there, filed away, forgotten. 32 years. Botzik held the vial up to the light, blood inside, dark and preserved, the seal intact. He called Detective Marshall. "You need to get down here." Marshall arrived within 20 minutes. Botzik showed him the vial. "It's been sitting here for 32 years, Botzik said. "Perfectly preserved, climate-controlled storage. Original seal never broken." Marshall's hands shook as he took the vial. The 1989 test was wrong. Maybe. Or maybe the sample they tested was contaminated, but this one wasn't. We need to send this to the lab, now. Already drafting the request. April 2020. Vial sent to Michigan State Police Forensic Science Division in Lansing, marked urgent. Rush processing requested. Lab technician Dr. Sarah Lynn received the sample, logged it, read the case history. 1988 murder, original DNA test excluded suspect. Retesting preserved blood sample. She handled the vial carefully, broke the seal in a sterile environment, extracted blood cells. The sample was pristine. Whoever preserved this did it right, she noted in her report. Modern DNA extraction methods were light years beyond 1988 technology. Smaller samples needed, more accurate results, full genetic profiles from microscopic amounts. Dr. Sarah Lynn generated a full profile from Plato's blood within 2 weeks. May 2020, the profile was entered into the database. Comparison run against the semen samples from Gale's assault. The system searched, compared alleles, markers, genetic sequences. Marshall called the lab daily. Any updates? These things take time, Detective. It's been 32 years. How much more time do we need? June 12, 2020, Friday afternoon. Marshall was at his desk reviewing another cold case when the email arrived. Subject: DNA analysis results. Barris case. 88-1847. He opened it, hands trembling. Read the first line. Conclusive match. Probability of match 99.999%. Roger Dean Plato is identified as the donor of semen samples collected from victim Gale Ann Barris. Marshall read it again. Then again. Conclusive match. Roger Dean Plato raped and murdered Gale Barris, 32 years. The evidence was there the whole time, sitting in a box, perfectly preserved, waiting. Marshall sat back in his chair, stared at the ceiling, wanted to scream, cry, punch something. 32 years this family waited. 32 years this woman's murder went unsolved, and the proof was there all along. He called James Barris. The phone rang 3 times. Hello? Mr. Barris, this is Detective Marshall. I need you to sit down. Silence. Then, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. We got him. What? Roger Plato, DNA match. He killed your mother. We have conclusive proof. James was at work, warehouse supervisor on lunch break, sitting in his car. The words didn't make sense at first. What do you mean? We found a preserved blood sample from Plato's autopsy. Tested it with modern methods. It matches the DNA from your mother's assault. 99.999% match. He did it. James's knees buckled. He slid down in the driver's seat. Are you sure? Absolutely certain, there's no doubt. What happens now? Does he go to jail? Marshall's voice was gentle. He's been dead since 1988, but we have the truth now. Your mother's case is solved, James cried. 32 years of grief pouring out in a warehouse parking lot. He pressed his forehead against the steering wheel, shoulders shaking. Coworkers walked past the car, laughing about something. The world kept moving. His stopped. Grown man, 45 years old, sobbing like the 13-year-old boy who lost his mother. Can I tell my sisters, my grandmother? Absolutely, I'll call them too, but you should tell them first. James called Ashley. She was at work, between clients. James? What's wrong? They found him, Ash. They know who killed Mom. She started crying before he finished explaining. Then Melissa. She was in her classroom, students at recess. Had to step into the hallway. Are you serious after all this time? Roger Plato, the guy the cops shot, he did it. 3 siblings now in their 40s and 30s, conference call from 3 different cities. Sobbing together like they did the night their mother disappeared. Mom didn't just vanish, James said. She didn't suffer for nothing. We know now. We finally know. Gale's mother was 82, living in assisted care. Frail, using a walker, but mind still sharp. James drove from Dayton to Battle Creek that weekend, sat with her in the common room. "Grandma, I have news about Mom." She gripped his hand. "Tell me." "They found who did it. Roger Plato. The police have proof." She wept. Her grip on his hand loosened. Her shoulders, which had been tense for 30 years, finally dropped. "Roger Plato," she repeated. "The one the police shot?" "Yes, Grandma, he's the one." "My baby can rest now. We can all rest." Detective Marshall spent the summer of 2020 preparing, compiled every piece of evidence, DNA reports, original case files, witness statements, forensic analyses, 32 years condensed into a PowerPoint presentation. He coordinated with Calhoun County Prosecutor David Gilbert, Michigan State Police, Emmett Township PD. Everyone who had touched this case needed to be part of the announcement. January 2021, they set a date. January 28th, press conference at Battle Creek City Hall. Marshall called James. "We're going public. Would you like to attend?" James didn't hesitate. "Yes." He drove from Dayton the night before, brought Ashley and Melissa. The three siblings stayed at a hotel near the courthouse, barely slept. Decades of waiting compressed into one night, January 28th, 2021. 10 a.m., the press conference room filled quickly, media from across Michigan, TV crews with cameras and lights, print reporters with notebooks, true crime podcasters with recording equipment. The story had everything: cold case, DNA breakthrough, family perseverance. DNA solves 32-year-old murder would be the headline. Prosecutor David Gilbert stood at the podium, Detective Marshall beside him. James, Ashley, and Melissa sat in the front row. United. Finally, Gilbert cleared his throat, began. "Today we can announce that the 1988 murder of Gail Ann Barris has been solved." He displayed a photo on the screen behind him. Gail smiling, surrounded by her 3 children. A family snapshot from better days. Gail was a 30-year-old single mother who was abducted from a coffee shop parking lot, sexually assaulted and murdered on October 9, 1988. For 32 years, her family has waited for answers. Today they have them. He explained the DNA match. Roger Dean Plato, killed in a police shootout 3 days before Gail's body was found. Modern testing on preserved blood samples. Conclusive identification. Had Roger Plato lived, he would have faced charges of open murder in the first degree and first-degree criminal sexual conduct. Under Michigan law, he would likely have received life in prison without possibility of parole. Because Mr. Plato is deceased, this case is exceptionally cleared. There will be no trial. But there is resolution. A reporter raised her hand. "What about Richard Compton?" Witnesses placed him at the scene. Marshall stepped forward. Mr. Compton's DNA was excluded from the sexual assault. However, evidence suggests he was present at the time of the crime and lied to investigators during the original investigation. Had he lived, he would have faced charges of obstruction of justice and possibly accessory after the fact. Mr. Compton died in 2009. Another reporter. "Why did the original DNA tests fail?" Marshall's jaw tightened. In 1988, DNA technology was in its infancy. Testing procedures were inconsistent. Labs were overwhelmed. The original sample from Mr. Plato was degraded during transport. The 1989 test that excluded him was based on compromised evidence. So the killer was identified correctly, but the science wasn't there. Correct. Detective Al Tolf, who led the original investigation, believed Roger Plato was responsible. He was right. But he didn't have the tools to prove it. Gilbert stepped back to the microphone. "This case demonstrates why we must never give up on cold cases. Technology advances. Science catches up. Families deserve answers no matter how much time has passed." He gestured to James. "The Barris family has shown remarkable strength and persistence. Mr. James Barris, would you like to say anything?" James stood, walked to the microphone, hands shaking, cameras clicking. Lights bright. He looked at his sisters. They nodded. My mother was the strongest person I ever knew. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat, continued. She worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. She never complained. She just loved us. That's all she did, love us. Tears ran down his face. He didn't wipe them away. For 32 years I've wondered. I've had nightmares. I've asked God, why her? Why us? Why did she have to die for going to get a cup of coffee? Today I have an answer. Roger Plato took my mother from us, but he didn't take her memory. He didn't take what she taught us, how to be strong, how to love, how to never give up. His voice steadied. I want to thank Detective Marshall, Sergeant Batzik, Dr. Lynn at the State Lab, Prosecutor Gilbert, everyone who never gave up on this case. And I want other families out there, families with cold cases, to know, don't give up. Science catches up. The truth comes out. It took 32 years for us, but it happened. He looked directly at the cameras. Mom, we got him. You can rest now. We all can. The room was silent except for camera shutters. Reporters wiped their eyes. Ashley and Melissa joined their brother at the podium. The 3 siblings embraced. A photo from that moment would run in newspapers across Michigan. 3 middle-aged siblings holding each other, finally free. 3 months after the press conference, Gail's mother died peacefully in her sleep. She was 82. Ashley found her in bed, rosary beads in her hands, photo of Gail on the nightstand. At the funeral, James stood at the pulpit. She waited 32 years. She never gave up. She lived long enough to know the truth. That's all she wanted. Gail's grave at Oak Hill Cemetery still has the most beautiful roses every spring. James plants them now. Red roses, his mother's favorite. The case file, 2,000 pages, 3 decades, hundreds of investigators, sits in the Calhoun County Archives. Closed, solved, a testament to persistence. Justice delayed is not justice denied. It's justice that refuses to quit. Justice that waits for science to catch up. Justice that honors a mother who kissed her daughters goodnight and never came home. Gail Barris was 30 years old when Roger Plato took her life. Her son James was 13. He's 50 now. He spent more years searching for answers than he had with his mother. But he found them. If this story moved you, if you believe families like the Barris family deserve closure no matter how long it takes, subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell. Share this video. These stories matter. These families matter. Justice for Gail came 32 years late, but it came, and that's everything. Somewhere in Kentucky, another monster thought he was safe. 46 years earlier, 16-year-old Carol Sue Klaber sang like an angel in the church choir, her voice floating over the pews every Sunday morning. Then one night in 1976, she vanished, found days later in a drainage ditch, brutalized, discarded like trash. For nearly half a century, her killer sat 3 rows behind her mother in that same church. Passed the collection plate, shook hands after service. Watched Mrs. Klaber light a candle every year and whisper, "Please, God, let me know before I die." He smiled, said, "Good morning, sister," and went home to Sunday dinner. He thought hymns and time would hide him. Watch the next video and see the moment the choir falls silent. And the devil in the third pew finally stands exposed.